There are lines on the map that seem meaningless, houses divided between two countries, places surrounded by other countries, and even land that seems to belong to four countries at the same time. But in this video, we'll look at something even more unusual, countries that are actually inside other countries. But before we start, don't forget to like this video. This means a lot to us content creators. Thank you very much, and now let's get started. Let's start with number 5, Lesotho, a country that seems like South Africa forgot to include it. In the whole world, there are only 3 countries that are surrounded by just one country: Vatican City, San Marino, and Lesotho. But Lesotho is the most unique. It's a whole country with a population of over 2.3 million, and on all sides it is surrounded by South Africa. That means if you want to enter or leave, you have to go through South Africa. No sea, no other borders, no other way out. A country surrounded by another country. And what's more surprising, it's not small. It covers more than 30,000 square kilometers, even bigger than Belgium. And it has had its own government since 1966. It has its own king, its own military, its own currency, its own government, and its own seat in the United Nations. A complete country, but it's inside another country. How did that happen? The story began in the 1820s. Mo Shoai led different groups of people who were fleeing from wars in the region. He chose the mountains as their home, not just for safety, but because it was easy to defend. The place was like a natural fortress. As the settlers from Europe approached, he made an agreement with the United Kingdom. In 1868, his land was under the protection of another country. That means they were protected by Britain, but still separate from other territories. So when South Africa was formed in 1910, Lesotho was not included, and to this day, it remains a country within another country. When South Africa left the Commonwealth during the apartheid era, the United Kingdom still held the former Basutoland, and in 1966 it became independent and was called Lesotho, a whole country that is inside another country. But that's not the only unique thing about Lesotho. It has another record that is almost unmatched in the world. It is the only country whose entire territory is above 1,000 meters above sea level. That means even its lowest part is still high. The lowest part of it, where 2 rivers meet near the edge of South Africa, is about 1,400 meters, and that's already their lowest point. In fact, over 80% of the country is at an elevation of more than 1,800 meters. While South Africa around it is mostly flat, Lesotho is high up, like it's in the clouds. So it's not just a country inside another. Its location is even higher compared to the surrounding country. Now let's go to number 4, the unique combination of Madha and Nahwa. So there's a part of the United Arab Emirates that's inside Oman. And inside that, there's a small part, again, of the United Arab Emirates. It's like layers on top of each other. If you're driving between Fujairah and Khor-Fakkan, you'll suddenly enter Oman. No checkpoint, no passport, no obvious change in the surroundings. You'll only know because of a small sign. That place is Madha, a small part of Oman surrounded by the United Arab Emirates. But it doesn't end there. If you go further inside Madha, there's something even stranger. You'll reach Nahwa. It's a part of the United Arab Emirates that's inside Madha. That means United Arab Emirates, then Oman, then United Arab Emirates again. There's a country inside another, and then another one inside that. And how did this happen? Not because of war, not because of an agreement between big countries. This all started with a decision made by local leaders in the 1930s or 1940s. They were asked to choose which side they would join, and that's where the unusual line on the map was formed. Until now, it still hasn't changed. At that time, the lines on the map were not yet clear. It was like a patchwork of areas controlled by different groups, all under the loose control of the United Kingdom. There were 4 main groups that held power at that time: the Al-Qasimi of Ras Al Khaimah, the Al-Qasimi of Sharjah, the Al-Sharqi of Fujairah, and the Al-Said of Oman. They all sent representatives to one place, Madha. That's where they talked. That's where they laid out their arguments about who should lead. The elders of Madha listened. They thought about it. And they chose. They chose Oman because they thought the governance there was better. The state was wealthier. And most importantly, their water supply would be better protected. That decision was recorded. And in 1969, when the British fixed the lines on the map, Madha officially became a part of Oman. Even though it is surrounded by the United Arab Emirates, not everyone agreed. Inside Madha itself, there is a small area called Nahwa. They have closer ties to Sharjah. So even though the surrounding area chose Oman, they remained loyal to the United Arab Emirates. And that's where the unique arrangement was formed. Nahwa is United Arab Emirates territory inside Oman, which is itself inside the United Arab Emirates. This is one of only two of its kind in the world. The other is the famous line on the map between Belgium and the Netherlands, the last one on the list. But the most unique thing is when you're there, it just feels normal. No guards, no passport checks, no gates. It's only confusing on the map. In real life, it just feels like a single community. People from Madha go to the United Arab Emirates to work. People from Nahwa go to Madha to get gas. Because gasoline is cheaper in Oman, their support system is different from that of the United Arab Emirates. That's why the simple gas station in Madha has also become like a landmark. Not because it's famous, but because that's where you can feel that you're crossing into another country. Even though almost nothing changes in the surroundings, vehicles from the other side keep coming. That's why the gas station in Madha has become one of the busiest places. And, to be honest, this is the simplest example of a unique situation. There's a border in the middle of the community, but people just continue living their normal lives. In a world where most borders between countries are due to war, beliefs, or differences in race, Madha and Nahwa were formed simply because of a meeting, a decision, and a village that believed the water system of Oman was better. And in the desert, that's enough. Now let's go to number 3, a place that's even more confusing, Dahala Kagrabari, a piece of land that's almost unimaginable. Before, this small piece of land, just about 1.7 acres, almost the size of a football field, ended up inside 4 countries, nested one inside another. It's like there's a country inside another, then another one inside that. And this is the only case like this in the whole world. It's a bit confusing, but it's actually simple. Dahala Kagrabari is part of India, but that piece of India is inside a village in Bangladesh. The village in Bangladesh is inside a village in India. Then that village in India is again inside Bangladesh. It's like they're layered on top of each other. This rarely happens, but how did this happen? Let's go back to history. In 1713, there was an agreement between the Kingdom of Coats Bihar and the Mughal Empire. Their conflict ended, but there was a problem. They didn't clearly settle who owned each piece of land. There were many small pieces of land scattered throughout Bengal. There was no order. There was no clear reason. And that's where one of the most complicated borders in history began. In 1947, former British India was divided. It was divided into India and East Pakistan. Later on, it became Bangladesh. But the small pieces of land were not settled, so the scattered areas were also included in the division. There are 106 parts of India inside Bangladesh, and there are 92 parts of Bangladesh inside India. And that's not all. It gets even more complicated. There are places inside another place and then another one inside that. That's where Dahala Kagrabari comes in. There's even a story about this. According to local stories, there were some lands that were lost in gambling by the kings. It was just like a bet. Land was at stake. And when they lost, just a signature on paper, and the ownership would immediately transfer. That's where the term Chit Mahals came from. Lands were transferred just because of a simple agreement. But in real life, the situation of the people there is extremely difficult. For example, a farmer who finished working in Dahala Kagrabari lives in Bangladesh. But his land is part of India. And to get to the nearest bus stop, he has to cross into another country. 4 times. This is his route. India, then Bangladesh, then India again, then Bangladesh again. 4 crossings, even though the trip only takes a few minutes. And to make it worse, there's no clear border system. There's no proper checkpoint, no clear control. And because of this, many residents have almost no access to basic services. There's no reliable electricity, lack of health care, and it's hard to get help from the government. It's like they don't clearly belong to any country. That's why it took decades before this was resolved. In 1974, India and Bangladesh agreed to settle the border between the two countries, but it wasn't implemented right away. It took many more years of discussions and delays, until finally in 2015, a new agreement was approved, and on August 1, the two countries exchanged territories. More than 50,000 people were given the choice of which nationality they wanted, and the Dahala Kagrabari. The small piece of land inside the 4 layers was finally given to Bangladesh. A strange situation that lasted for almost 300 years suddenly disappeared in one night. And until now, this is still the only third-order enclave ever recorded in the world, and most likely, it will never happen again. That very long agreement was not just about the map. It solved a problem that had long gone unnoticed. The people living in those areas were mostly farmers. It was like living in a place without a clear country. On paper, they belonged to a country, but in real life, they didn't. They were not properly governed, they didn't receive services, and there was no clear protocol. When they got sick, the nearest clinic might even be in another country. If they needed to register something, they had to cross several countries. Simple things became complicated. But when the agreement came, they were given a choice. They could become citizens of either India or Bangladesh. Some also moved to new homes. And the former Dahala Kagrabari, that small place that was so chaotic, is now just a simple part of Bangladesh. That unusual arrangement that lasted for a long time, 302 years, suddenly disappeared. Now let's go to number 2, Kaliningrad. It's a part of Russia that's surrounded by other countries. If you look at the map of Europe, find the Baltic Sea. Along its coast, there's a small piece of land between Poland and Lithuania. That's Kaliningrad. It has a population of about 1 million people, and it's the base of Russia's Baltic Fleet. But there's a big problem. It has no direct connection to mainland Russia. If you want to go there by land, you have to pass through 2 countries, Lithuania and Belarus. It's a 350-kilometer journey that passes through other countries. So even just looking at the map, you can already see that it's really unique. And it's not just unique, it's also one of the most guarded places in Europe. But why does it look like this? Its story began in 1255. It was called Königsberg. It used to be the center of the Teutonic Knights, and later on, it became an important city of Prussia. In the 19th century, it was already a well-known German city, an important port and a center of culture and knowledge. The philosopher Immanuel Kant was also born here. But as time passed, everything changed. After World War II, the city was occupied by Soviet forces after intense fighting in April 1945. Under the Potsdam Agreement, the area was given to the Soviet Union. After this, most of the Germans living there were expelled. And in 1946, the city's name was changed to Kaliningrad. The population was also replaced. Russians and Belarusians were brought in to live there. The old German street names were changed. Many of the buildings were abandoned or demolished. And on top of the former German city, a Soviet city was built. Throughout the Cold War, Kaliningrad was not easily accessible. It was closed, not just to foreigners, but also to the citizens of the Soviet Union themselves if they didn't have special permission, because it was an important military zone. The Baltic Fleet was based here, and it was full of military bases. It was like the tip of the Soviet Union's weapon pointed at Western Europe. But in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, and that's when everything changed. The Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, declared independence. Eventually, they joined NATO. In 2004, Poland followed as well. And suddenly, the situation in Kaliningrad changed. Before, it was the western edge of a very large country. Now it's like a separate island. The land route from Russia to Kaliningrad that passes through Lithuania is now under NATO's control. This means that the area they used to use is now in the hands of their enemy. So what did Russia do? They strengthened it even more. They deployed Skander missiles. These are missiles that can reach almost 500 kilometers and are capable of carrying nuclear warheads. The Baltic fleet also remained there at the port of Baltisk. It's Russia's westernmost port and their only ice-free harbor in the Baltic. According to intelligence agencies in the West, there is a high possibility that nuclear weapons are stored in the area. But Russia neither confirms nor denies this. That's why, up to now, Kaliningrad is one of the most sensitive and most militarized places in Europe. In 2022, after Russia's attack on Ukraine, an important change happened. Lithuania temporarily restricted the transit of goods going to Kaliningrad, especially those products that were under sanctions from the European Union. For Russia, this was a big issue. They called it something like an act of war. Eventually, the rules were adjusted, and the passage was partially allowed again. But that incident clearly showed something. Kaliningrad's position is weak. All its supplies pass through a country that's part of NATO. They're currently in conflict with them. There's another place that military planners in NATO always think about. It's the Suwalki Gap, a narrow strip of land. It's only about 65 kilometers long. It's between Poland and Lithuania. On one side is Kaliningrad. On the other side is Belarus, an ally of Russia. This is the only land route that connects the Baltic countries to NATO. If Russia and Belarus were to control this, the connection of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania to other NATO forces could be cut off. And from Kaliningrad, missiles can reach the entire area. That's why this is one of the most dangerous places where a conflict could start in Europe. And all of this is because it is separated from its own country. But despite this, more than 1 million people live in Kaliningrad. They live normal lives, working, studying, and starting families. Before, it was easy for them to cross into Poland to go shopping or go to Lithuania to travel. But since 2022, that has almost stopped. Now their supplies mostly come in by sea or by train. Movement is controlled while passing through Lithuania, the city that was once called Russia's gateway to Europe. Now, it's like an isolated outpost surrounded by countries that are not their allies and connected to Russia through a route they do not control. But even so, the place still carries its history. In some parts of the city, you can still see the old Königsberg, old churches, warehouses, and the ruins of the former royal castle. Next to these are the Soviet-style buildings. It's like two different worlds combined in one place. Immanuel Kant is buried in a cathedral located on a small island in the river in Kaliningrad. But that place no longer looks like the former German city. It's no longer a tourist spot. The street signs are now in Russian. And the people living there now have almost no connection to the place's former history, because most of them only arrived after the old city was gone. In other words, it's a city built on top of the old place. And now it's stuck in a situation that they didn't choose. A part of Russia that, to reach, you have to pass through countries that are not Russia's allies. Whether the situation remains stable depends on what happens outside, on conflicts that they cannot control and cannot escape from. Now let's go to number 1, Baarle-Hertog and Baarle-Nassau, a town with many borders between countries. There are about 30 of them. If you look at the map of the Netherlands, there's a small town near Antwerp. Its name is Baarle, but it's not a normal town, because the border between Belgium and the Netherlands isn't at the edge, it's right in the middle. It goes through roads, shops, restaurants, and in some cases, other places. It even passes right through houses, in the living room, the bedroom, even the door. Here you can cross from one country to another several times in just a minute, even when you're just walking inside a cafe. And the most unique thing is you can actually see the line on the floor. There are white markings on the floor that show where Belgium ends and the Netherlands begins. You can see this on the street, in front of shops, even inside restaurants. In some buildings, the line actually divides the house, and in Baarle there's a simple rule. Where your door faces, that's your country. If your door faces Belgium, Your house is Belgian, even if half of it is in the Netherlands. There's a house in Baarle-Hertog and Baarle-Nassau that has 2 front doors, one Belgian and one Dutch. That means the owner can choose which country to wake up in every day. Yes, it's really that unique. In the 12th and 13th centuries, the area was divided between 2 rulers, the Duke of Brabant and the Lords of Breda. The Duke's land eventually became part of Belgium. Breda's land became part of the Netherlands. The Duke granted land in exchange for military support. But back then, straight lines on maps weren't common. They didn't draw clear boundaries. It was like this: a field here, a farm there, a small forest. Each one passed on individually. So what happened was the land became patchwork, mixed up, messy. And when Belgium became independent in 1831, they tried to fix the border between the 2 countries. But when it came to Baarle, they couldn't sort it out anymore. Instead of drawing a single line, they divided the land piece by piece. More than 5,700 plots were split up one by one, and the issue still wasn't resolved right away. It was only in 1995 that all the remaining disputes were finally settled. But honestly, even before that, people were already used to it. There are 2 town halls, one in Belgium and one in the Netherlands. They're close to each other, but they're in different countries. There are 2 sets of emergency services. Whichever side the fire is on, that's the fire brigade that responds, Belgian or Dutch. And if a house is split, for example, the front door is Belgian but the back is Dutch, it becomes a discussion about who is responsible. There are 2 school systems. There are different rules for construction. And before, even business hours were different. In one small town, 2 countries operate side by side. Because the rules are different, strange things happen in Baarle-Hertog and Baarle-Nassau. For example, in Belgium, restaurants stay open longer. So when it's already closed in the Netherlands, the customers are just moved. Just a few steps and they can continue eating. The meal goes on. It's that simple. This became even stranger in 2020. During the pandemic, Belgium and the Netherlands had different rules. In Belgium, masks were required. In the Netherlands, they weren't. There's an art gallery that's literally divided by the border. If you enter through the Belgian door, you have to wear a mask. But if you just take a few steps to the Dutch side, you can take it off. As for the cafes, the ones in the Netherlands are closed, but those in Belgium are open. So even if people are close to each other, they're following different rules. But despite all that, the system works. The whole area has a population of about 10,000 and life runs smoothly. A lot of tourists still come just to see the unusual setup. For the people who grew up there, this is just normal. Crossing the international border to go to school is just ordinary. They only realize it's unusual when they leave the place. Yes, there's a bit of tension when Belgium and the Netherlands play football. But aside from that, the nearly 30 borders between countries inside the area are just like designs people take pictures of. There's another interesting thing. At the town hall, couples can choose which country to get married in. The ceremony room is divided right by the border. The left side is Belgium. The right side is the Netherlands. Before they say their vows, they have to choose which country they want to get married in, and the legal paperwork is based on that choice. It sounds funny, but it works. And honestly, it's a good example of how borders work when countries don't make too big of an issue out of it. Belgium and the Netherlands have both been members of the Schengen area since the 1990s. That means there are no passport checks between them. They also use the same language, and the food is almost the same. And even though the town is divided, there's only one sense of community. In fact, Belgium and the Netherlands even share some government functions in this area. Over time, the town has developed its own system, how to live in one place, even if 2 countries are involved. No complications, no drama, just simple camaraderie. And instead of seeing borders as a problem, they made them interesting. They made it an attraction. Now, it's a famous tourist spot. Every year, there are visitors from different countries who come just to experience it. The kind where you stand and you're stepping on 2 countries at the same time. Or you eat in Belgium but pay in the Netherlands. Or you stand at a doorway that's in 2 different legal systems. Simple, but unique. And if you think about it, with all the trouble that lines on a map can cause, This is probably one of the best results of an old land dispute.